So now you know my favorite haunted houses, whether it's original or IP. Now, let's get into the streets, because I've seen countless scare zones in my tenure going to Halloween Horror Nights, and in today's video I'm going to give you my top 10. And in the past few years there have been some phenomenal scare zones and some that weren't as good. So, like I said, I'm going to give you my personal favorite of the scare zones that I have experienced at Halloween Horror Nights Orlando. And no top 10 list is made without a number 10, and coming in at number 10 is Invasion from HHN 27. This scare zone was honestly so visually amazing. From the set design to the scares themselves, they were really well executed. I love the costumes of the aliens, I love seeing the giant spaceship crashed into the San Francisco wharf. It was just amazing to see all together, and truly it makes you want to see this again or something similar, and they have been teasing it over the past few years that we're going to see something about Invasion again, as it was in Action and it was also in Hell Block Horror. And going from number 10 to number 9, we are now at Bayou of Blood from HHN 24. Now this zone was really visually appealing to the eye. It was in Central Park, and it really just tied everything together. It made you feel like you were in a Louisiana swamp. It had the whole shack in the front for sacrifices. It had the different characters. It had its own leader. It had the Voodoo Queen. It was honestly a perfect blend. And we actually saw a sequel to this in a house in Dead Waters, and it was honestly a beautiful house as well. But nonetheless, the scare zone is memorable, and so many people fell in love with it and fell in love with the Voodoo Queen herself that they want to see her again, and they want to see her get that icon feel. And now we move from 9 to 8, and we have Graveyard Deadly Unrest from HHN 31. This scare zone was honestly visually terrifying. You walked into a graveyard, and of course, from the outside looking in, it sounds kind of stupid thinking of just walking into a graveyard and it being scary, but the ghosts in this zone truly made it memorable, and honestly, a Hollywood zone that wasn't all chainsaws or glitz and glamour was something that we needed. It was a change of pace, and honestly, it was a pretty much perfect zone for this area and this year's event, because it really tied into a whole dark aspect of Halloween that we didn't see throughout the entire park. So it was a perfect addition, and it is a great scare zone. But now with our number 7, we're staying in Hollywood, and we're going to add those glitz and glamour that I was talking about, because we are talking about Vanity Ball from HHN 29. This zone was truly different than any zone that we've ever seen. It had a runway, it had different types of characters. It was basically something so visually appealing. It was so cool to see, and honestly, I fell in love with the zone. I was there every single night. HHN 29 was literally, this was the place you could find me during HHN 29 pretty much. But I loved all the different doctors, I loved the different surgeries that were done on people, I loved seeing the characters go down the runway, and it was just a nice little kick of fun in a scare zone, which we've gotten a lot of, but this was a nice change of pace, and I liked it a lot. And now for number 6, we're gonna stay in Hollywood with Lights, Camera, Action, Eddie's Revenge. Now this is the first time that I ever got to experience Eddie Schmidt at all. If you don't know who Eddie is, it's Jack the Clown's brother. There you go, easy explanation. But this scare zone was truly awe-inspiring, and it was so cool to see. It was an anniversary zone with a little bit of flair. So we got to see a bunch of different properties that were original. So we saw something from Dead Man's Wharf, we saw something from Invasion, we saw Tweaks and Boons. It was so cool to see all of this together, and yes, there was chainsaws everywhere, but it's Eddie's scare zone, so that's what you expect. The sets for this zone were so cool to see, and truly, this zone, if it were to come back another year, I wouldn't be mad at all whatsoever. And now we move to my top 5. And before I start the top 5, I need to say this. If you notice a theme with these next ones, let me know down below, because there is a little bit of a theme here. So my number 5 is Killer Clowns from Outer Space from HHN 28. Now, this zone was just fun and zaniness. It's everything that you wanted from the Killer Clowns. You got to see them for the very first time. They were never featured at Horror Nights before this. So it was cool to see those giant suits, those giant clowns. It was cool to see Shorty, Spike, Jumbo, all of them. It was just a great experience. And being able to hear the music playing, like the Killer Clowns theme song and everything, it was just a perfect zone. The fog smelled like popcorn. The clowns were there. I was there. It was a party. It was a vibe. Now we move to my number 4, which is Vamp 85 New Year's Eve. This is the second time we've ever seen a Vamp Scare Zone, and if I'm being 100% honest with you, this was probably the better one of the two in my opinion. It was in New York, and it had so much space to roam with, but in this zone you had so many different characters from the 80s. So you had Prince, you had Michael Jackson, you had Run DMC. I can keep going on and on forever because we had so many different characters in this zone. But it wasn't just the characters from that, no. It was characters like Trisha White that made this zone. If you don't know who Trisha White was, she was a reporter. But her and her cameraman both made this zone remarkable. And truly, I'm excited for Vamp 69 because if this has anything to tell off of that, it's going to be a great zone. And now we go from my number 4 to my number 3, and it is Revenge of Chucky from HHN 28. Now this zone is where you probably could have found me during HHN 28 almost every single night, due to the fact that all the characters in here were so diverse and so different. This zone is the one that made me fall in love with the streets for Horror Nights, and I know I've been going for years prior, but this zone right here truly made me find a connection with scare actors that I never thought I would find before. So shout out to everyone that was in Chucky, but it wasn't just Chucky himself in the zone, no. We had the Barrel of Monkeys, we had all of the good guy dolls, and well, they weren't dolls, but they were like people with the good guy jackets on. But here's one thing that I loved about the zone that was different than any typical Chucky scare zone. Every single actor in the zone had a piece of Chucky in them, meaning that they were part of Chucky. So you would have his anxiety, you would have his stress, you would have him being angry, you'd have his murderous ways split up into different people, and all together it created a very cool blend of seeing all of these different actors portraying Chucky, but in their own original light. Moving from number 3 to number 2, and we're going to leave Hollywood and go to Central Park. So we have my favorite movie, Trick or Treat from HHN 27. Now, this was probably because I love the movie so much that I fell in love with this zone, but amongst talking to other people about it, I've learned that it's not just that I love the movie, it's that this scare zone was actually really good, and it was cool to see all the pumpkins in the trees, everything lit up nice and beautifully, seeing all of the different scenes from the movie take place, seeing the quarry kids, it was really nice. And the fact that I got to see my little boy Sam just running amok in these streets was honestly a 10 out of 10 experience for me. So, tip of the hat, and thank you to being one of the best streets I have ever experienced, and allowing me to see my favorite movie in person. And now I'm going to give you a few of my honorable mentions because I feel bad for leaving them off the list, but they were very good scare zones nonetheless. So, we have HHN Icons from 25, Psychoscarapy Unleashed from 25, The Purge Anarchy from 24, and Vamp 55. But, now you're wondering, what is my number 1? So, my number 1 is All Night Die-In double feature from HHN 25, and you've probably heard me talk about this scare zone numerous times. This is a perfect zone. 2 completely different casts, featuring a black and white cast for like Universal Monsters and things like that, and then a color cast that featured Chucky, Freddy, Jason, and slashers of that type of itch. It was perfect. This was an anniversary scare zone, and it was honestly one of the best scare zones ever put together by Halloween Horror Nights. And truly, I wish we could see something like this again. Who knows, maybe in the near future we'll have a similar zone, but for right now, that's my top 10s. I don't know if anything from this year will crack this, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. So, with all that being said, if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below what your favorite scare zone of all time was. Subscribe if you guys already haven't done so. And stay excellent, my dudes.